All right, welcome back to the deep dive. You know the drill by now. Give us the intel and we'll give you the insights.
That's right, straight to the good stuff.
Exactly. So today we're cracking the code on United Spirits Limited and how they performed in quarter two of fiscal year 25. We've got their press release, obviously,
Of course, gotta have that.
and their financial statements, plus a little extra spice. We've got the auditor's review report from Price Waterhouse & Co.
Ooh, the auditor's report. Always juicy.
Seriously, sometimes it feels like we're financial detectives.
Totally. Always looking for those clues.
Right. And today's mission, should we choose to accept it, is to figure out what these numbers really tell us about USL's performance.
And more importantly, what should we be watching for moving forward?
It's been a bit of a roller coaster for the Indian beverage market lately, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Up, down, all around.
And we're going to see if this spirits giant is riding the wave or getting wiped out.
Love that analogy. Riding the wave or wiped out, gotta stay afloat.
Okay, so first things first. Let's hear from the CEO, Hina Nagarajan. She called it a muted quarter, with demand softer than expected.
Muted quarter. That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. Why do you think that's interesting?
Well, usually the second quarter is a really strong one for the alcohol industry.
It makes sense.
Especially with all the festivals coming up, people tend to, celebrate.
Sure, makes sense.
So this cautious tone from the CEO is a bit like, I don't know, seeing a few storm clouds on a sunny day.
I like that. Okay, so let's dive into the numbers themselves. Net sales were down a bit compared to last year, coming in at INR 2,844 crore.
Okay.
But here's the twist. Their EBITDA, which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, actually jumped up 7.4% to INR 502 crore.
Interesting.
And their profit after tax landed at a cool INR 341 crore.
Okay, so that's the head scratcher. Sales are down, but profits are up. There's definitely more to this story.
Definitely. It's like they're selling fewer drinks but making more money somehow.
Right. It's like, how does that even work?
Yeah, exactly. And get this, their business breaks down into two main segments. Prestige and above, which is like all the fancy high-end stuff.
Addicted stuff.
And then the popular segment. Prestige and above held steady, while the popular sales took a 6.9% hit.
Okay, so people are still buying the good stuff.
They are, but here's the thing. Prestige and above accounts for almost 90% of their total sales.
Wow, 90%. That's significant.
It is. So that tells you a lot about how people's drinking habits are changing, at least in India.
For sure. It looks like there's this big shift happening, with more people choosing to spend more on premium brands.
Absolutely. So even though they're selling a bit less overall, this focus on premium is paying off big time.
It is. And it's smart, It's like upgrading your ticket from economy to business class.
I love that. Less is more, but higher quality.
Exactly.
So they're making less, but earning more. Now, let's look under the hood and see what's actually driving this profit growth. Their gross margin, which is the profit they make on each bottle, is up. Overhead costs are getting back to normal. They've been doing some strategic things with pricing, and of course, they're cutting costs and boosting productivity wherever they can.
So they're running a tight ship.
It sounds like it, right? So even though the market is a little, uncertain, they're finding ways to squeeze more profit out of every single sale.
And that's impressive, right? It shows they know how to adapt.
Totally. It's like instead of selling a ton of beer, they're focusing on selling fewer bottles of champagne.
Yeah, and that's smart.
It is. Now, the CEO also mentioned something really interesting. They are back in the Andhra Pradesh market.
Oh, wow.
After a 5-year hiatus.
That's huge.
It is huge. Andhra Pradesh is a major market for alcohol, so this re-entry could be, well, a total game changer for them.
Absolutely. It's like they've unlocked a whole new level in a video game.
I love that analogy. The question is, can they actually capture enough of that market to make a real difference?
Right. Because potential is one thing.
Exactly. Potential is one thing, results are another. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Now, they also mentioned sustainability in the press release, which, more and more people are paying attention to these days.
Absolutely. It's a big deal.
But they didn't really give us much to go on.
That's interesting. You'd think they would want to shout from the rooftops about any progress they're making in that area.
Right, especially with investors and consumers becoming more eco-conscious all the time.
Exactly. So the silence is a little, I don't know, it's a little suspicious.
Yeah, makes you wonder, are they lagging behind or are they just being super secretive?
Right, like what are they hiding?
Maybe they're just, cooking up something big and don't want to spoil the surprise, or maybe they're just not doing that well in this area. It's definitely something to watch.
Absolutely. Keep an eye on that.
And finally, There was no mention of any specific financial guidance for the rest of fiscal year 25.
Okay, that's unusual. Companies usually give some kind of outlook.
They do. It adds another layer of intrigue, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Maybe they're just playing it safe because of all the market uncertainties we've talked about. Or maybe they're just not sure what to expect.
Right. Either way, the upcoming festive season is going to be crucial for them.
Absolutely. It's like their big boss battle, you know?
Yeah, it is. Okay, so we've got a company with good profits, despite a kind of slow market. A potential gold mine in Andhra Pradesh. A big question mark hanging over their sustainability efforts. And now we're going to add another twist. The auditor's report from Price Waterhouse & Co.
Ooh, now this is where things get really interesting.
I know, right? Let's dive in.
Remember how we were talking about those clues? Well, this auditor's report, it's like finding a hidden room in a mansion.
Ooh, I like that. A hidden room.
Right. And this hidden room, it raises some eyebrows for sure. They have what's called a going concern qualification in there.
Okay, going concern. That sounds a little ominous.
It kind of is.
What's that even mean?
Basically, it means the auditors, they have some doubts about whether USL can actually, keep the lights on in the long term.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's like a warning sign. Little crack in the foundation. Investors need to pay attention to that.
And it looks like this report is full of potential cracks, right? It mentions all these legal battles USL is tangled up in.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot.
One that really jumps out at me is this whole thing with the IDBI bank.
Ah, yes, the IDBI saga.
Ah, saga indeed.
It all goes back to 2014. USL, they took out a pretty big loan from IDBI, using some of their assets and shares as collateral.
Okay, so like putting up your house and your car to secure a loan, right?
Exactly. So far, so good. But then, here's where things get interesting. In 2015, USL decides they want to pay off the loan early,
Okay.
even though there was a penalty for doing that.
Interesting. So they thought they were being smart, getting ahead of the game.
Right, exactly. But IDBI, not happy about it.
Oh, really? What happened?
They claimed USL violated the terms of the loan agreement and demanded an extra, get this, 46 crore rupees.
Wow. So it ended up in court.
Of course it did. USL deposited the money, but the case, it's still dragging on.
Oh, man.
And IDBI is holding on to those pledged assets and shares.
So it's like you try to pay off your mortgage early, but the bank refuses to take your money and just keeps a lien on your house.
Exactly.
Okay.
A mess, create a lot of uncertainty for USL.
I bet.
And to make things even more complicated, the Price Waterhouse report, it kind of hints at some potential compliance issues related to the original loan.
Oh, really? Like what?
They even mentioned the possibility of diversion of funds.
Diversion of funds? That sounds serious.
Yeah.
It does. What does that even mean?
Well, the report, it mentioned something called the initial inquiry and the additional inquiry.
Okay.
These were investigations into some transactions that were potentially linked to USL's former non-executive chairman. It's a bit of a tangled web.
Okay, so maybe there are some skeletons in the closet here.
Maybe. And even if these issues happened in the past, they could still come back to haunt USL.
How so?
Well, regulators might get involved, which could lead to, I don't know, fines, penalties, who knows?
Yikes. All right, so moving on. The report also mentioned something about a trademark license agreement.
Ah, yes.
Again, it's kind of vague,
It is a little bit.
but it sounds like another legal headache. What's going on there?
Well, basically, USL owes money to another company.
Okay.
But this company, and here's where it gets even more complicated, is linked to that same former chairman we were just talking about.
Oh, boy.
So to try and settle this debt, USL, they kind of offset it against money they believe IDBI owes them.
So it's like a game of financial musical chairs.
Yeah.
You owe me, they owe me. Let's just call it even.
Right. But legally, it's not that straightforward. The official liquidator, who's handling the affairs of that other company, is not happy.
Of course not.
They want their money plus interest. And guess what? It's another court battle in the making.
Ugh, it's getting complicated. So we've got loan drama, potential compliance issues, a trademark dispute. Anything else?
Oh, there's more. The report also flags a dispute with one of their institutional customers.
Really? What happened there?
Apparently this customer, they backed out of a settlement agreement from 2023 and just started withholding payments.
Wow, that's bold.
It is.
What's USL doing about it?
Well, they're not backing down. They've started arbitration proceedings to try and get their money back.
So this is starting to feel like a legal obstacle course for USL. It makes you wonder how much time and money they're spending on lawyers.
Yeah, legal battles can be incredibly costly, not to mention distracting.
Absolutely. So let's zoom out for a second. Let's connect all these legal issues to the bigger picture. What does this mean for USL, especially considering they're already navigating a tough market?
Well, these legal battles, they're not just side stories. They have the potential to seriously impact USL's financial health
Makes sense.
and their ability to make, strategic decisions.
So it's like they're trying to steer a ship through a storm while simultaneously dealing with a mutiny on deck.
That's a great analogy.
And let's not forget that big question mark hanging over their sustainability efforts.
Right. Their silence on that front is, well, it's deafening.
It is. It's like they're trying to hide something.
It's definitely raising eyebrows. In today's world, ESG, those environmental, social, and governance factors, they're front and center. Companies can't just be vague about their sustainability strategies anymore.
Right. Investors want to see concrete plans, measurable progress. It makes you wonder if they're just not prioritizing this whole sustainability thing, which, could really hurt them in the long run.
It could. Consumers are becoming much more conscious of the impact of the products they buy, and they're willing to, vote with their wallets.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at their financials. We've dissected their focus on premium brands, explored that whole Andhra Pradesh situation, and we've uncovered some potential red flags buried in that Price Waterhouse report.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to their financial performance for a second. We talked about those declining sales but rising profits. Let's break down exactly how they managed to pull that off.
Good idea. It's worth taking a closer look at what actually contributed to their profitability, especially in a muted quarter, like the CEO said.
Exactly. So, first up, gross margin improvement. They managed to increase their gross margin by 178 basis points year on year. Now I know what you're thinking. Basis points, what are those?
Yeah, it sounds complicated, but it's really not.
Okay, good.
A basis point is just one hundredth of a percentage point.
Okay.
So an increase of 178 basis points basically means their gross margin went up by about, 1.78%.
Got it. So they're making more profit on each bottle they sell. How are they doing that?
It's probably a combination of things. They might be negotiating better prices with their suppliers,
Okay.
streamlining their production processes,
Makes sense.
or even just focusing on those higher margin products that we talked about earlier.
Right. Less beer, more champagne.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about them cutting costs? Well, the report also mentions that their overhead costs are normalizing.
That's a good sign. Right.
It is. It suggests that they're getting a handle on their expenses, making their operations more efficient.
And they're also doing some pretty clever things with pricing and revenue management.
Yeah, they're being strategic about, when and where they offer discounts, optimizing their product mix to cater to different customers, maybe even experimenting with some new pricing models.
So they're playing chess with their pricing strategy, making every move count.
Exactly. And let's not forget those ongoing cost-cutting and productivity initiatives.
Right. They're always looking for ways to do more with less.
All of these things working together, they've enabled USL to, boost their profitability even when the market is being a little difficult.
So despite those legal battles and that whole mystery surrounding their sustainability, they're actually doing some things really well.
It's a complicated picture. They're showing resilience, financial savvy, but they also have those challenges to address.
Okay, so we've explored their performance, dug into the legal stuff, highlighted those question marks around their sustainability efforts. What's next?
Well, now we look to the future. What are the big questions hanging over USL?
What should our listeners be watching for in the coming months?
And how can they use all of this information to understand where USL is headed?
That's a great question.
That's where we're headed next. We're going to put on our prognostication hats
Love it.
and try to anticipate what the future holds for this spirits giant.
Okay, so we've been through a lot, haven't we? Seen the good, the bad, the uncertain when it comes to United Spirits Limited. But what's next for this company? What should people be looking out for?
It's like, yeah, we put the puzzle together, but there are a few pieces missing.
Totally. And the first piece we need to find is, well, how this festive season plays out. Will it be enough to get things moving, to make up for that slow start?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Keep a close eye on those next quarterly results. See if they can really make the most of all the celebrations. If they can, capitalize on that, we should see sales jump up. But if not, well, that could be a warning sign, right?
Right, because the festive season, it's huge. Everyone knows that. For the alcohol industry, especially in India, that's their time to shine. It's like the Super Bowl, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the wild card.
Andhra Pradesh.
Andhra Pradesh, exactly.
Will they actually be able to get back in there? I mean, it's been 5 years.
Right. Big market, tons of potential, but it's going to take work. Pay attention to how they're setting up distribution.
Okay.
New products, things targeted specifically at people in Andhra Pradesh, and of course, how are their sales doing in that region? We want those numbers.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to, I don't know, win back an old flame?
Yeah,
We'll see if Andhra Pradesh welcomes them back.
fingers crossed.
Now, let's not forget about those legal issues, right? Those cases, they could go on forever. But if anything big happens, well, that could really shake things up.
Oh, for sure. Keep your eyes peeled for any settlements, court rulings, regulatory actions, any of that. That could have a big impact on their finances.
Yeah.
Whether it's good news or bad news, you got to pay attention to that.
It's a lot to keep track of, right? A legal win could be huge, a loss could really set them back. High stakes. And speaking of high stakes, what about their sustainability strategy? Are they going to finally, open up about it, tell us what they're doing?
That is the question. Honestly, their silence is a little worrying. Like investors, consumers, they want to know what's going on,
Right.
especially with the environment, social issues, all of that. If USL wants to keep their reputation, attract new investors, they got to step it up.
It's like a secret ingredient, right?
Yeah.
People are starting to wonder what they're hiding. So if we had to, boil everything down, what's the takeaway here? What should our listeners really understand about United Spirits Limited?
I think the biggest thing is that they are a company at a crossroads.
Oh, I like that. Crossroads.
They've shown they can handle a tough market. They're making good financial decisions, but there are some serious obstacles in their way.
It's like they're sailing through, I don't know, choppy waters.
Uh-huh.
They have a great captain, the ship's solid, but there are some storms brewing. They need to chart a good course.
Exactly. Their future really depends on a few things.
Yeah.
Festive season, Andhra Pradesh, how they deal with those lawsuits, and maybe, just maybe, they'll finally tell us what they're doing about sustainability.
Right. A lot of ifs.
It is. But hey, we've given you the map, the compass.
Right.
You got to navigate the terrain yourself. We've given you the knowledge, the tools. Now you go and analyze it, make your own decisions.
So what does the future hold for this spirits giant? Guess we'll have to wait and see. But it's a story worth following, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, where we take these big topics and make them a little less intimidating, a little more understandable.
We try our best.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Always be diving.